handle the truth.
Yeah, we good. Yeah, we good.
Welcome back, everybody. Thomas Free Me, the Thomas Free Me TV and podcast show, and this is Thursday night. Get right with Demetrius Knuckles Hill. Getting right. We getting right. Everybody getting right. Tonight is a night of getting right. First, before we get into the show, man, let me give our blessings, man, to the people of Hawaii, everything that's going on over there. With the storm passing here in Florida, the hurricane, a lot of flooding, a lot of people's things were damaged, destructed. So many blessings going out. But Demetrius, how you doing, partner?
Hey, man, it's a beautiful day. I have battling a few medical problems and issues and whatnot as I turn 50 years old. Other than that, man, it's a beautiful day, man. I'm still breathing. I'm still believing. I'm still achieving, man. Hey, it's Thursday night. Get right. If you ain't getting right, you all wrong. So get right. Hey,
that's right.
Get into it. We giving big ups to everybody who represent their neighborhoods in the right way and who represent their communities in the right way and doing the right things for their community. That's who we represent. That's who we speaking on behalf of.
Absolutely, no question. And speaking of which, I want to give a big shout out to fabkids.com, man. I just got a shipment in today of about 54 pairs of shoes to go out to the kids tomorrow at Shady Hills Mission Chapel. First Friday of every month, we go over there. We have a feeding. We feed the impoverished community. We make sure they have clothes to take back to their camps with or wherever they go, food, things of that nature. So big shout out to fabkids.com for that blessing of a donation that they sent. Beautiful, beautiful shoes. So that's what it's about, man. And that's what we're going to get into tonight a little bit with our conversation is we're going to get into privilege, man. You know, this has been the topic the past couple of days for me, D, about privilege. And I'm realizing that, you know, a lot of people have different ideas and perceptions of really what privilege is. And I guess it's because there's so many different aspects of privilege. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we talking about what being privileged really look like then, because it is a lot of different aspects of it. And it's even some aspects that I never even realized. But we about to talk about this here.
Absolutely. So, you know, going up and reading the psychological definition, I guess you would say, of what privilege is, it refers to certain social advantages, benefits, or degrees of prestige and respect that an individual has by virtue of belonging to a certain social identity group.
Wow.
How do you feel about that?
I wonder who that is. Hey, so how I feel about that? Oh, man, let's get into it because we talking about it's some people that I'm looking for example. Here's a perfect example. Matter of fact, I'm going live, man, on TikTok. Here's a perfect example of privilege. I was just reading on social media today about how Donald Trump was given a bond, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was given a bond, and the name Young Thug came up. Why ain't Young Thug given a bond? He got a RICO case just like Donald Trump got a RICO case. And so now, all of a sudden, this guy named Joe Biden is speaking on Young Thug's name with respects to he should have a bond as well, right? And that's privilege. Donald Trump get it, he don't. It's not just Donald Trump. It's really anybody with money or anybody that knows somebody who's sitting on the top, you know. But it's so many different aspects of it, man, because all you have to do is just run around with people with a lot of money, with influence. You take all of these rappers, singers, actors, like the guy from that I don't know if how it happened, where he shot the guy on the movie set.
Mm-hmm. Uh,
Baldwin, the
Baldwin.
Baldwin guy.
Yep. The Baldwin.
And you know, he he out. He didn't even go to jail. You know what I'm
Alec
saying?
Baldwin.
But let that same mistake happen in one of our households. Just a mistake, and we out of there. You know what I'm saying? That's privilege. And privilege don't apply to skin tone. It applies to class, influence. That's where privilege comes in at, man. And it's something to be pissed off about, man, because the little people like us, man, we guilty till proven innocent. They innocent till proven guilty, and it's always hard to prove they guilt. Even when they admit that even when they would tell the whole world, I could stand in the middle of Times Square and shoot somebody, and wouldn't nothing ever happen. I grab females' coochies, even when they tell us that, and they go to trial for something like that, they'll get found not guilty because of privilege. So I'm about to go live right here. Did you get that?
Yeah, I got it. It said that you weren't live yet. But so let me ask you this, D, as a black man, when you hear the word privilege, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? The racial aspect of it?
Well, the first thing, let me look. Let me say this here. The first thing that comes to my mind when I think of privileged as a minority growing up impoverished, first thing that come to my mind is white people. Because I have seen two people. Matter of fact, I just seen on social media, literally. It was two guys about to fight, a white guy and a black guy. They about to fight. The girl is standing in between them. So the white guy like, no, move out the way, move out the way. The black guy said, let's go, let's get it in. So now the white girl wouldn't move, right? The police came up and sprayed the black guy in the face with mace. And they walked to the white guy and said, just stay over there. So in one sense, that's some racist type stuff. In another sense, that's privilege, because if he were not white, he probably would have gotten maced too. Both of them would have gotten maced. But because it's that card that some people in authority understand what privilege means. And because they spare people, they spare them according to what their psychological definition of privilege is. They spare the white boy because he's privileged, he's white. So that's my initial, when I think of privilege growing up, that's what I thought of. I see it different now because I see it based on class. And you have a lot of white people who are in lower class. Nowadays, they try to say there's only a middle class and upper class. That's how they try to identify the destinations now. Middle class, no, it ain't no middle class and upper class, it's lower class. What happened to us? They try to raise us to a certain level so they can psychologically make us believe that we're not beneath anyone. We're middle class. We're not lower class. Right. They treat us like scum because they have the money to live a certain way. They have the prestige to live a certain way. They have the employment to live a certain way. And so therefore, anyone, like the movie by Tyler Perry called The Have and Have Nots, anyone who have not, they can never look at as equal because you have not, and I have. So that's how I feel about, and also I'm live right now. So I ask that y'all please share my feed. We talking about privilege and what does being privileged look like.
So we have a comment from a friend of mine here in the Tampa Bay area, Pastor Denise, who is Hispanic, and her comment is that is not privilege, that's authority. as far as the police or whatnot. But that in its sense is, for me, Pastor Denise, is privilege in itself. When and that's kind of what we're going to get into the structure of. This is why I'm asking D, as a Black American citizen, when he hears the word privilege, what's the first thing that comes to his mind? And it's really understanding the structure of privilege within everything, within gender identity, within sexuality, within class, within ability, privilege within education, right? Just because a person has a certificate, they're more privileged than an individual that does not have a certificate, even though that their IQ may be the same, or the individual without the certificate may have a higher IQ. But because this individual had the ability to go and get this certificate, he's more privileged. So we have privilege in all kinds of different aspects. And I guess what the conversation for me has been over the past couple of days is, when does it really get into victimization? When are we getting into victimizing ourselves because of this so-called privilege, right? And then, coming from the white side, from a lot of white people feel that Black people have a lot more privilege than white people because they see it as all the benefits that you get for just being Black that white people don't get. So,
it's funny. It's funny you should use that word privilege. You say white people feel like Black people have a lot of privileges. And it's crazy that you would use that term, because that's all we got. And that's the problem. Because white people have rights, Black people have privileges. So, you have a right to vote. Your right to vote is not revoked or anything else. You don't have to reapply for it or anything as a white person. Your vote is just your vote according to the United States Constitution. But a Black person, they have to repass a voting rights bill every 25 years or so for Black people. Why? Because voting for us is a right based on conditions. 25 years. If we don't agree after 25 years, you don't vote. You have privileges as a Black person. You have privilege. I'm talking about under the white supremacist system. Mm-hmm. You have privileges as a Black person. You don't have rights. It's like the slave had no right to be free. They had no right under the white supremacist system. Anytime a slave was freed, they were being privileged, not because of some right, but because of some privilege. And the United States Constitution really words it in that way. We don't have rights, we have privileges under the United States Constitution, because the United States Constitution does not look at Black people as whole human beings. They still look at us as 3/5 of a human being. So therefore, you don't give 3/5 of a human being, someone who is subhuman. You don't give them rights because they're subhuman. They're uncivilized. You give them privileges. In other words, something that we're granting you something temporarily. That's a privilege. So now, when I bring up the police, when the police sprayed the Black guy in the face with the mace and he hugged the white guy or comforted the white guy, it's privilege because it's the white police who understand what he's doing. The two people may not understand it that way, but the white police working up under this system, and if he's already been indoctrinated with this supremacist way of thinking, then he know and understand what he's doing for this white person is giving him privilege. He's making him privileged. Whereas this Black guy, in this sense, he's not privileged, because this white guy represents the same thing as that police represented. I acknowledge you. I see you. I relate to you. I am a part of you. Therefore, you are removed from the punishment that I will inflict on this situation. I'm going to mace the Black guy and comfort you, even though all the video shows they was doing the exact same thing to each other. Share my live, y'all. Share my live.
I requested to come in. You got to bring me in.
Oh, I ain't see you. Let me see where you at.
So, in that aspect, right, and this is a lot of what I try to explain as well. You know, like my life hasn't been privileged as a white person, uh, uh, personally, right? And so I understand when you have a lot of individuals who feel like when they hear this, it becomes an issue for them, right? Because they say the same thing that, you know, well, my life isn't privileged and so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to explain is how that privilege came to be. And I just had this conversation the other night. How that privilege came to be that white people were given the opportunity to flourish because we know that the Constitution was written for the white land owning man, right? It says that clear because women had to fight for their rights. All women, not just black women, all women had to fight for their rights. And of course, black people had to fight for their rights as well. So who was left other than just white land owning men? And that's who
Right.
the Constitution was written for and was allowed to flourish in this land, gain opportunity, gain land, gain generational wealth, and was able to pass it down to their families because they didn't have to worry about their houses being burned down, the cities being burned down, anything of that nature. Right? So that is kind of where the privilege comes into where, you know, I used to hear a lot, like black people would get mad at me, man. Black people would get mad at me and be like, man, you squandered your white privilege. You squandered your privilege.
Bingo. Bingo.
You know,
I
like
told you that.
you told me, like a lot of black people have told me seriously, like you don't know what you gave away when you caught that felony conviction because now you become one of us.
I told you the same thing.
You know, and these are realizations, you know, being a convicted felon, you know, that it makes me easily relatable and have a severe amount of empathy for this discrimination that goes on in our nation because I feel it, I see it, I get it. You know, and it's no matter how much work I'm putting in right now as a strong community leader. You know what I mean? Doing all the things that I'm doing in the community, building a nonprofit in this county that this county don't even have a nonprofit like this, don't even have the resources that I'm bringing to this county as a convicted felon, and I'm still seen that way. I'm still seen as a convicted felon that cannot be trusted. So,
Why?
because I am a slave.
Because you did what black people do.
Well,
That's how they look at it.
that's how they look at it, but it's knowing that, like we were talking about the other day, that slavery in the United States never ended. And I challenge anybody to show me where slavery ended because it did not. It did not. It tells you that a certain amount of people are free, but there's always a however. And that however states unless you have been convicted of a crime. And it doesn't go on to say that until you fulfill this deed, you are then free. It just says that unless you are convicted of a crime, all rules of slavery still apply. You're still looked upon as 3/4 of a man. You still don't have all your rights as a human being are taken away. So in that Constitution, nowhere does it state that you become free once you've convicted that crime. And this is why we see what we see today, the recidivism rate, the way that we're treated. Me being home 7 years and still can't even get anybody to rent to me. I still can't even get my own home, no matter the amount of work that I put in, because I'm a convicted felon. And it just goes back to the women that I've dated in the past that have said, and multitudes have said, it's not just one, multitudes have said that ever since they were a little girl, their daddies have taught them because you have a darker skin, you have to work 3 times as hard to get noticed.
And that's the truth. The truth, you know, the truth it's a reason why I'm gonna just run down a few people that we have seen in the public's eye who was demonized and ostracized because of certain people who they chose as their mate or their genre of their art. You take Eminem.
Mm.
Take Eminem. He was ostracized and everything. Sure, he became rich and all that, but I'm talking about the overarching racism that he faced and the criticism that he faced because he chose an art that was not white oriented, right? He chose rap. He hung around with who? He hung around with Detroit mayor at that time, Kwame Kilpatrick, and all the black guys. So now he's thrown with the wolves. You take initially Kid Rock. Kid Rock came out as a rapper. But soon as he seen it that the white people wasn't going to agree with him being a rapper and hang around all them black people, he switched up and started doing country and sold himself out.
Yep.
It's Kid Rock. You take Machine Gun Kelly.
Who, by the way, let me just throw this point in on Kid Rock, who, by the way, is making songs about raping young girls. Have you heard this? Raping young girls, right? And that it's some would see it as statutory, but he sees it as mandatory. And this song is being played in a child's movie. But go ahead, partner.
So then you take Machine Gun Kelly, a guy who came out rapping. I love that boy there. He cold too. But he seen that as he became more popular, he couldn't stick with those black people. So he went and found a white girl, right? You take Julia Stiles, who was in Save the Last Dance with the black guy, right? She was in love with the black guy. She caught so much flack for being an upcoming white female in a movie. She was becoming a movie star, but she was with a black, her actress, her mate was black.
Yeah.
So what she did is they dropped her out of the movie scene for a minute. Yeah. Literally.
She could only do scenes. She could only do movies where where her partner was a black. After she did the first one, that was it.
Absolutely.
She could only do movies as that.
So you take all of these, and there's so many more. I don't even have to name. Y'all know what the hell I'm talking about. Y'all see it more than me. Y'all be on social media. Y'all be on the news. Y'all be in the entertainment magazines and entertainment news stations. Listen, as soon as you choose something that society has deemed as black, and black, according to science, means death. This means anything that's dirty, anything that's filthy, anything that's unbecoming, anything that's criminal. Soon as you choose anything of blackness, you will be ostracized as a white person, and you will be cast into that pit with the rest of the blacks. And so now, when you commit a crime or engage in criminal activity as a white person, now you have just revoked your privilege. You're no longer, don't get me wrong. It's certain small things that you still have a privilege at. But the overall situation involving you is that you are now one of them. And you will be treated accordingly because the United States Constitution say slavery is ended unless you have been convicted of a felony. So now you're a slave.
And that's the fact of it. I mean, I could show you the trial transcripts at my federal trial where I was likened to Eminem. And this was from a sheriff, and I knew what that meant. I knew exactly what that meant. It was when they were going over my phone tappings, my recordings, the prosecutor asked, and this was purposely because it turned into like a belittlement thing, right? And the prosecutor was asking the sheriff, what was your first impression when you heard Thomas's voice? And he kind of giggled and laughed, and he was like, well, the first person that came to my mind was Eminem. And this was in 2003. This isn't Eminem now. This was 2003 when he first was coming out, like you said. The white guy coming out rapping, talking about white people, poor white people, trash, having sex with his mom or whatever he was rapping about back then. I don't know. I'm not too big of an Eminem dude, but it was just understanding that I was being likened to that for a purpose. It was the judge saying, I should have known better. You know,
Ain't
I
that
should
something?
have known better. I seemed like an intelligent person. I should have known better. It's these innuendos that are thrown at me from one white person to another, telling me exactly what you're saying. Like, you have privilege and you squandered that. You should have known better.
Should
It's
have
it's
known better,
it's
man.
me showing up at the Christmas party of a construction company with my Jamaican girl, and 2 weeks later being fired. You know what I mean? Just standing off at the corner of the party, nobody coming up and associating with us. You know, of course, when you go up and talk to people, people are friendly and they smile on your face and they, oh, you know, hey, this and that. But as soon as you walk away, you can feel them, you know, behind you. Like, man, who the hell is this guy? Look, I mean, look at him.
Yeah,
We got to
yeah,
get this
yeah.
guy out of here. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, what the hell?
Who the hell this guy think he is?
You know, it's going on a ship, on a cruise, MSC Cruise, which is an Italian cruise line, and we know how them Italians can be. So it's going
Yeah.
on there and coming and buying liquor, right? So we're buying liquor. We're coming back on the cruise ship, and we're first to check the liquor in. So we kind of stand off to the side, but she goes up first, right? She goes up first, and I'm kind of standing off to the side. So she talks to the Italian lady. The Italian lady kind of pushes her to the side, and she starts checking white people's liquor as they're coming up. So after about the second one she's going to check the third one. I walk up. I'm like, what's going on here? She's like, oh, well, I'm just checking the liquor. I said, but you got, you know, we're standing right. We've been standing right here. She's like, oh, she's with you. I said, yes, we're together. So, I mean,
Wow.
and that got us a free cruise, which I never even took them up on. You know what I mean? When we went into the executives about that, we got us a free cruise off that right there, man. But we didn't even take them up on it because that whole ship, the whole cruise was kind of that way. But it's the looks. It's being with an ethnic woman, me being a white person, being with an ethnic woman, and just seeing the difference when we're not together. You know,
Right.
or even being together and asked, are you guys together? Well, I mean, we're 2 inches apart from each other. My arms around her shoulder. I would think that we were.
Right. And it's it's it, it's funny to me because I have a cousin and his girlfriend, her father worked at the prison I was at, right? So I remember when I first seen her, she sent me a friend request or something. Yeah, I think she sent me a friend request. And I seen her last name and I said, where you from? She said, I'm from up north. I said, do you got your family has that last name? She said, I said, did your father work in the prison? Or uncle was? She said, yeah, that's my dad. He worked. I said, yeah. I say, now, let me say, he cool as hell. Never had a problem. I never seen him trying to oppress nobody, none of the inmates, and none of that, right? But keep in mind what I just said. He cool as hell. Never seen him trying to oppress nobody or anything. But they don't like the fact that she with a black guy. So she kind of revoked her privilege. You know what I'm saying? She kind of revoked her privilege because not only is she with a black guy, not only do she live with a black guy, not only did she leave from up north where it's predominantly white to come down here to the inner city area with a black guy, but now she have 2 babies by a black guy too. So imagine the revocation of her privilege and imagine the criticism that she faced because she went against the court, especially up north in Michigan. They are very racist, very, very racist. Ku Klux Klan type racist, right? And they don't hold it back. So when a white person does something that the systemic racist system deems black, you become black. You become black. And now they treat you accordingly. This is kind of why I'm sure you've heard or somebody have heard where they say Bill Clinton was the real first black president, right?
Yeah, I've heard that.
because he did something that the systemic racist system has deemed that black people do that type of stuff. They cheat on their wives and they uh they lie about it, and then they play dumb when asked about it. Did you have sex with this? I did not have sex with that woman. So
Went
he
on
kept saying
Arsenio
this.
Hall with his cool sunglasses, playing his
So
saxophone.
right. So now he lost a few points, but because he's president, he's in a different class. So he don't lose his privilege like you lost your privilege. He don't lose it like that. But he lost a few points with the people, especially when he began talking about soul music, and he know all the soul music, and all the rappers like him.
The pandering. That's
Listen,
that's when they knew, because you were just coming off George Bush. You had the Democrats that were really hurting to get back into power, and then here comes
oh
Bill George Clinton. Bill George
Bill.
Clinton coming in and just swoop the people, and then turn around and hit us with a mandatory minimum.
Hey, but listen, just think about what we're talking about. Here it is. He lost a lot of points with this Monica Lewinsky, right?
Mm-hmm.
He lost a lot of points with his own constituents, his own race of people. But to make up for it, what did he do? That law,
Created
the 1994 drug. Well, first of all, it was the AEDPA,
Yeah.
and that's the Anti-Effective Terrorism and Death Penalties Act. That right there locked a lot of people in prison.
Yeah.
A lot of people, it ruined a lot of people's second chances in the court to raise new issues. Bill Clinton signed that. Hillary Clinton is the one who said, and let me tell you a little history on Hillary Clinton, just for those who don't know. For those who are into politics, they might know. Hillary Clinton is said to have messed around with not one black guy, but a couple black guys. And one of those black guys is named Ron. Oh man, had I not spoken about this, his name is
the one ended up dead up in Central Park.
Listen, that's one. Now you had the Secretary of State in 1995. The Secretary of State name was Ron. Somebody on this feed remind me of the Secretary of State in 1995 under Bill Clinton. He was said to have been messing around with Hillary Clinton, and then Ron Brown. His name Ron Brown. And then Ron Brown, I'm gonna show you something. Ron Brown was in an airplane, was in a plane when it crashed, right? This is on the news. The plane crashed, everybody on the plane dead. But when they examined Ron Brown, he had a bullet hole in the back of his head. So, anyway, that's another story. But look it up, because it came across the news. They talked about it, and then they swept it under the rug and never talked about it again. But my point is that Hillary Clinton carries hot sauce in her purse. So now Hillary Clinton lost a lot of points too, when it started coming out that she was messing with a basketball player from back in the days, Ron Brown. And then, so you take these type of people and you look at the points they lose, and they got to make up those points. So now you have Bill Clinton you have Joe Biden, who also promoted the bill, the 1994 crime bill.
Of course. Well, the 84 crime bill was Joe. He came out in the 84 with the crime bill, and then in 95, Bill Clinton followed up with the mandatory minimums, locking all that in.
That's right. Tough on crime type stuff. And so they had to make up for a lot of the points that they lost. And a lot of the points that they lost when it came to Hillary and Bill involved their relationship with black people. That's when they start losing their points. And you gain points when you mess with good white people, Oprah Winfrey.
Who now has you seen Oprah's latest stunt?
Yeah. Bill Cosby too. He gained points, and then you seen what happened. Michael Jackson, he gained points, and then you seen what happened. Kobe Bryant, he gained points, and then you seen what happened. Tupac gained points, and then you seen what happened.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about the privilege within politics, right? The privilege of some individuals because they have a certain viewpoint and what that can garner them. Let's look at what's just going on with the, not to get too much into it, but just the LGBTQ movement and how.
Man, if I support LGBTQ, man, everybody love me.
Well, that's my point. And so right. So when we're talking about that type of privilege, and for an individual who sticks to their religion, sticks to their beliefs, and really doesn't have a problem with that community, just has their beliefs, they are underprivileged in society. They're being attacked, they're being undermined, they're being shut down, they're being censored.
It's funny, man, because they shove sexuality down people's throat. They shove what you should be, or how you should be, or how you should think. They shove that down our throat. They indoctrinate us with ideas to be accepting of something that we may not be accepting of, something that we may not understand. And that's not to say that someone is wrong or right in how they choose their life, because that's your choice to make. I can't tell you what hurts you or how you're supposed to feel about a certain thing. I can't do that. But I can tell you how I feel about it. But when you tell people how you feel about your stance against LGBTQ, you may not even really be in opposition to that because you really don't understand it. But if your views are viewed as oppositional, you will be cast out, criticized, and if you got a talk show, it might be canceled. If you got a radio show, it might be canceled. If you are of any popular individual, your popularity will be diminished.
Just like what's going on with what's his name now, Teddy. He just went in front of Congress and testified about what's going on in Hollywood and how he was molested in Hollywood. What's his name? Had the show. They canceled him. But when I first saw him the first movie I saw him in was what, Friday 2 or Friday 3, where he was playing Damon, coming home gay Damon.
Terry Crews.
Terry Crews. Teddy, I was saying Teddy. Terry Crews. He just testified in front of Congress about the parties, that he had seen in Hollywood. I just saw a clip from Rogan that was saying, how he was saying that, man, he was saying something about Disney, man. I didn't even know. He's saying that, did you know that Disney has an underground city under that whole facility? And it goes about 20 stories into the ground, and it's got tunnels that's connected to everywhere on every theme park on that whole property. And he says he don't know what goes on down there. He said, but he did go to a party one time where he said it was crazy. And he said he was young. He was in his 30s at that time. And he said that he saw Tom Hanks and who's the other person? Man, I can't remember. I'm so bad with names. But Tom Hanks and somebody else that was sitting there, and he called it a jewel. I don't know what a little jewel is, but he's saying that Tom Hanks and this other person had this little jewel, and they were just sitting there passing it around back and forth to each other. And he said he saw so much crazy stuff going on at that Disney party that he can't even talk about it on the podcast. And he said the only reason why he was at that party was because of the drugs. But now as an older man, he's looking back like, man, that was really some effed up stuff going on at that party.
When I think of, we understand that parties go on. We understand this. And the parties are for the privilege. We understand this because you can take, we're going to go to elementary school. You had the Popular. people
Mm-hmm.
and the unpopular people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the unpopular people can never go to the popular people's party.
The
If you
greasers,
show,
the
if you
greasers and the
show up,
showsers.
that's right. If you show up at those popular people's party, you're liable to be jumped on. And not only are you going to be jumped on, if the police is called, they're going to try to escort you, who was victimized, off the premises, because they're going to say you should have been at their party. You weren't invited to their party. Now, this is where a lot of, when you get to middle school and high school and that same thing take place, and you get to college, and then they have these fraternities, sororities, and whereas they're sectioned off, and you have a lot of them are good, some of them are not so, and you have religious groups and so on and so forth that won't allow nobody else to get in, because it's like secret society type stuff. It's the privilege. And you have judges who are a part of secret societies, politicians who are part of secret societies, and therefore they are the privileged, right? So now, if I'm a part of a secret society and my son gets you know what? Social media again. Our officers, what was his son? No, his daughter or his son was arrested for drunk driving, right? They found out that this was the officer's son, the chief of police son. They called the chief of police and said, man, we got your son. He said, all right, just bring him to me. That's privilege. Because guess what happens if the next person who's drunk get caught drunk driving? He's going to jail, and he's getting a mark on his license, or he's getting his license revoked. So the question came up to that chief of police that would the situation have been different had it not been your son? He said, I'm sure it would have, but that's my son, and people and my fellow officers know that that's my son, and therefore they called me first.
Right.
And the news reporter said, we understand that, we respect that they called you first as his parent.
Right.
But we don't respect that they bypassed jail and brought him to you. That's the part that the public don't agree with.
Right.
Because now he never learned a lesson. He realized and recognized his privilege, that he knows somebody here, and therefore he may never have to find himself in jail, even if he's arrested again for drunk driving. Matter of fact, he wasn't even arrested.
Right.
He was pulled over. They never even arrested him.
And that goes back to a comment that was made by Ms. Denise earlier about how about an African-American police, then would it be the same? So it's understanding that it's not race within it's systemic, man. I mean, it's a structural thing. I mean, if you have a cop is a cop because of the uniform, but then they have their own racism within that uniform as well. But at the end of the day, a cop is still a cop.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's still that line, and there may be racism within that line, but if that racist cop and that black cop are together and it's against me, I'm dealing with two cops.
That's right. And it's like that all the time.
Because the white cop is not going to side with me against his black cop, no matter how racist that white cop is. You know what I mean? It's always going to stay within the police. It's always going to stay within that blue code.
Listen, man. First of all, it's designed that way. That's what I'm putting in this chat right here. It's designed to divide and conquer, man. So they will put a black guy with a white, a known white racist guy, right? And they know that white racist guy gonna do things to black people in front of that black guy, and that black guy most likely ain't gonna say nothing, right? That's part of the psychology of it, the indoctrination, so you can become a part of this systemic racism. That's all a part of the indoctrination process, so you, the black person, can recognize the white privilege and fear the white privilege. So now The black guy see the white guy do something and say, I'm not gonna say anything because it never goes anywhere. He gonna get found not guilty, so I'm not gonna say anything because the black guy has been indoctrinated and psychologically made to believe that his word has no weight against a white person. So therefore, they let these foul police do whatever they want, and some of the black people jump in now because their word don't mean nothing, and they feel like if that's the way that I have to come up through the ranks so I could earn a good living and do what I want to, then I would rather earn my living that way than to be trying to criticize this white guy who has a whole fraternity of white people with him that's going to condemn me and cause me to lose my job and my livelihood. And we already know that cops are some of the biggest killers out here because they tend to do it and can do it with impunity. You know, there's no real checks and balances,
which is privilege in itself. You know,
that's privilege.
And let's sum up talking about, you know, the privilege of money. You know, growing up in a house home where structure is there, where somebody has never in their life opened a fridge and saw it empty, or ever in their life had to worry about whether they had a roof over their head, or ever in their life ever saw their father beat their mother or anything like that, right? Versus like your story the one time about the Rice Krispies and the roach eggs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the sour milk and things like that. So how does that privilege kind of affect somebody, especially in relationships or social circles? You know, how do you get an individual to understand that has never had that pressure on them like that, right? Maybe because life is pressure, and each individual have their own trials and tribulations, no doubt. But how do you get an individual that has never experienced that understand a person who's grown, who lived up in that fashion, and maybe don't have any hope to succeed or never even had anything successful in their life, so they don't even try, you know, and they become addicted or homeless. And then you have the individual who's never experienced that life have an opinion on that homeless person. That's privilege.
That's exactly what privilege is. They have no idea what goes on. For example, I remember when I was in prison and I was talking through my door. I was in a hole. I was in segregation. I was talking through my door to a guy across the hall. And so the white police up there, he said, you guys always try to justify the stuff you guys do. You always try to use how you grew up to justify a lot of the criminal activity that y'all involved. Y'all want to sell dope and shoot guns, and you always try to blame it on your upbringing. Well, I asked the officer, I say, have you ever involved yourself in criminality or shot guns and sold dope? He said, no. I said, why? He said, because I wasn't brought up that way. I said, you see the difference? We was brought up that way. You just made my point. We was brought up that way. We was taught this. I seen my uncle, I seen my cousin, I seen my mothers, my fathers, I seen my brothers and sisters. I seen them doing this. This became my example. So what you seen is you seen your father going to work at Ford, Chrysler, or one of the big three, or in the prison system. You seen your mother cooking at home and being a great housewife to your father and all this other stuff to your brothers and sisters. You seen your parents going to church on Sunday or wherever y'all went, the Catholic temple, whatever it is. I say that's what you seen. You emulated that. And now you are a correctional officer, and this officer, like your father, your brother's a correction officer, your sister work in corrections. See how y'all family followed suit in one direction because y'all seen an example set before y'all? No different than how we grew up. So you will never understand how we grew up because you're not willing to open your eyes and see that something outside of you exists and something outside of your way of living and the way that you was brought up exists. Until then, you ain't never gonna be able to understand why some of us chose to sell drugs. Some of us chose to use drugs. Some of us chose to carry guns and rob and commit criminal activity. You'll never understand that.
And that's what I was explaining to somebody else. Just that same premise. Like there's just some things in life that you just won't understand unless you experience it. And some of us find it offensive when you say that you understand because we know that it's impossible for you. I mean, it's impossible for you to understand prison unless you have been incarcerated, unless you have felt that door shut on you and
Right.
stayed in there knowing that you could not go home. You know what I mean? Getting up the next morning, having people come up, question you about your food and you know, you don't know that pressure. You could never understand it. You could never understand slavery. You know, it's not a conceptual thing because it's never been in your psyche. You could never understand the Holocaust. You could never understand being forced out of your home and into a concentration camp and starved to death, laying in dead bodies around you while people are being ushered to a gas chamber, a number being tattooed on your arm. You know what I mean? You could never understand what that's like. You will never understand what solitary confinement is until you're back there in the darkness, hearing the thumping on the walls from people beating their heads, the crying, it's just the animal behavior of solitary confinement. You will never understand that. You know, so it's understanding that there are privileges, and I think that a lot of where the crux may be is privilege has kind of had a negative connotation put on it. You know what I mean? And it can be if you're using it negatively, but you know, I've come to a point in my life where I'm learning to embrace everything within me. Everything, just embrace it and embrace the fact that I do have certain privileges. You know what I mean? And I understand that. And is that my fault? No, it's not my fault personally, but it's understanding that not everybody has the same opportunity that I have. Not everybody has the same opportunity to walk in a store. And even though I'm a convicted felon, I can still walk in a store if I'm wearing nice enough clothes, you know, a nice shirt and some pants, and not be looked upon or watched. Not everybody has that opportunity.
That's right.
You know, so it's understanding that there are certain privileges, and that's not my fault. That's just the way that life is, but not to take advantage of those privileges.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not to exploit them, you know, and to wrap up, and I'll let you have the floor to say goodnight, but there was one time I'm going through the chow hall line, right? And there was a black dude in front of me. He wanted some extra bread. So it was a white cop behind the line, you know, and he's like, officer, let me get some extra bread. And officer's like, no. So he's like, man, let me get some extra bread, man. Our cop's like, no. So he's like, man, you're a racist ass cop, man. You know that? So he took offense to that. So he gave him the bread. So when I walked up and I asked for bread and he told me no, I told him the same thing. I made him like, you're a racist ass dude, man. And he just started laughing. Did I get my extra bread? No. You know, but again, could I look at that as privilege? Right? This dude is eating more bread just because he was black, essentially.
Yeah.
And I can't because I'm white. And this was a white man that gave it to him. He put pressure on him. He exploited that type of privilege to get that extra food.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Now, in my mind, I could say, you know what? He deserves it. You know, let him get the extra bread because there was a time he couldn't get that bread.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And that's what I'm saying about rationalization through our minds, is accepting the privileges that we have in whatever aspect, whatever arena. And it's not to say that you per se may have privilege just because you're white. You don't feel like you have privilege, but there are certain aspects that because of your skin, you are looked upon a different way. The conversation is broached with you differently. People approach you differently. People look at you differently, whether you realize it or not. Floor is yours. Take us out.
Here's a great privilege, y'all. I'm giving y'all the privilege to sit back, enjoy yourself, and listen and interact with us. You all are being privileged because some people we don't even want to interact with because they're not on our level of thinking. And that means, in other words, I'm talking about our level of righteous thinking. They want to hold us back. They want to pull us down. They want to be like the crabs in the barrel. But for those who want to listen to us, want to join hands with us, we're offering you that privilege. So you are now privileged in the same way that we have been dehumanized and ostracized by the system, and we have been deprivileged and underprivileged by the system. We telling you right now that if you are with us in this quest for freedom for all, you are privileged. We don't care what your background is, what walk of life you came from, what crime you committed or didn't commit, how you choose to live your life sexually or otherwise. If you agree with some of the things that we talk about, if you're going in the same direction that we're going, then you are privileged. And we don't want us to allow the system to tell us anything other than that, because they're going to dehumanize us because how we think. They're going to ostracize us because how we think. They're going to ostracize us because how we feel. But let's remember this here. Just as their prestige, their money, their class, their influence caused them to look down upon us, we must not be like them, because we recognize that the true privilege of this world, love everybody in this world and do the things that's necessary to make this world a better place. That's all I got to say. We privileged.
Amen. And we leave on that note, embrace everything. It's not a bad thing. It's just embrace it and making sure that you're not exploiting it for your betterment over somebody else that don't have that opportunity. At the end of the day, we're all American citizens. We have to understand that as American citizens, we all haven't had the same opportunity to flourish in this land. So as American citizens, in the time that we're in, where we know that these people are trying to divide us, doing everything that they can in all four corners of the map, downloading us with drugs, putting this marketing stuff in our face all the time, bringing up these issues that they know is going to strike controversy within the heart of what America stands for. And then we see all of this stuff going on and we have no knowledge. The fires in Hawaii, we have no idea how that stuff started. Fires started breaking out all over America. We got a lot of stuff going on, man, that people are scared, frightened, and when that happens, we get in fight or flight mode. People are high tense, high stressed, and it's just understanding as American citizens that we have to come together, band our communities together, and really start looking out for one another, because there may be a time, I pray to God every night that it does not come to it, because I've seen war and I do not wish that at all for any kind of human beings. But we are coming to a point to where your neighbor that you were hating on may be the only person next to you fighting for you, So it's just understanding that we're all one in this nation. We're all under the same taxation. We're all trying to just survive in this land and have a little bit of peace and love in our lives. With that, man, we'll see y'all next week. Thank you guys for joining in, man. And we got guests coming. I promise you within the next couple of weeks, we're going to start having guests on the show. So make sure you tune in for that. And we're going to really jump up jump this show up, man. So again, thank you guys for joining. Demetrius and I, we are out to next Thursday night. Peace and love.
Peace and love.